What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another Dream Firm Leader interview. My name is Tyler S. Clark, but more importantly, let me introduce to you the man who can hit a mean tax planning curveball out of the park, the visionary behind yourtechcpa.com. By the way, what a beautiful domain and what a beautiful website. A Dream Firm leader who just smashed his firm's all-time record for highest revenue in a quarter. It is my honor to present to you the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, James E. Jones. James, it is a pleasure. How are you doing today, my friend?
Hi, Tyler. I'm doing well. I appreciate the opportunity and the pep talk you always bring to your meetings. But yeah, it's been a great year so far. We're still in the early stages of implementing the Dream Leads and Dream Firms program. So we've got some exciting things, I think, on the roadmap going forward, even after tax season.
For sure. I'm glad you enjoy the energy. Definitely something I like to bring to the table. And at the same time, I'm humbled by the results you've already developed. I know we've got a long road to continue to walk here, but we're going to unpack a lot about your story, a lot about kind of what led to the highest revenue quarter you've had, and also why we're so excited about the future. So let's go ahead and bring us back to the beginning, to the early days.
Sure.
I like to get a sense for really what got you interested in accounting in the first place. What really led you to this firm and this profession at large?
Well, if you read my bio, you'll see some about a little brief description of my childhood. A little more detail. My grandparents purchased me a computer when I was 11 years old, and this was back in early to mid 80s, before, every kid had a computer. And I was already obsessed with the game of baseball. And, I had a baseball encyclopedia with over 80 years of stats sitting on my desk already. And, within a year or so of learning computer and some technology behind it, at that age, I was probably the first, maybe the only 11 to 12-year-old out shopping for spreadsheet applications. So long story short, my obsession with the game, with the statistics, with the history, I started looking at numbers at a pretty young age. And, it's not just the numbers, it's the relationships of numbers, which I really learned about, just studying the statistics of the game, which kind of just ignited a lifelong obsession with numbers. Now we fast forward, I didn't get into the accounting field until my mid 30s. So it was a late, or I would say a midlife career change. But prior to that, I was in real estate doing market analysis. I've always gravitated toward those jobs where there's numbers involved. And, circumstances surrounding the credit freeze in 2007, 2008 caused me to take a step back and say, when I was younger, I thought I was going to be an accountant. So maybe now's the time to do it, and went back to school, got my accounting degree. And long story short, that leads us here today. Very
cool. And I just want to say, I think they cast you perfectly in Moneyball. Brad Pitt, you were right on the money.
Yeah, it's a fitting image. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get it all the time.
But that's cool. It's rare that 12-year-olds are interested in spreadsheets, and obviously there was an affinity towards number, but there was also an affinity towards technology at an early age. And I mentioned in the intro here, your tech CPA. Perhaps maybe just take us. I know this is a little bit off the beaten path, but I think it's a cool thing for us to dive a little bit into. Your niche selection, which is something that a lot of people struggle with and have a hard time really pinning down. You pick technology as a niche for you to really start to go after. I find it interesting that that's also well rooted in your love of numbers, right? Those two things were inseparable. at the
Yeah.
beginning. So what really solidified in your mind that, hey, this is a good space for me to go after? What was the kind of the light bulb moment for you?
I probably had a gadget in my hand from the time I was old enough to hold something. And my mom always said that was the greatest babysitter was, a little electronic game, and we're talking about the early days of those types of things. But I've just always gravitated toward technology. And honestly, if I was probably born in a different place at a different time, I would have gone into the technology field rather than the accounting field. So it just seemed like a natural fit. Certainly not an expert on all things technology, but I have an affinity for it in, a well-rounded and, lengthy, I would say, knowledge base. I kind of always had that interest. So it was just a natural gravitation toward that. And also, a lot of the clients before I started the Dream Firms program, a lot of my clients were in the technology field just by pure chance. Didn't necessarily pursue those, but that's, where they were.
And I find this to be a recurring theme with our clients is that the niche selection process is meant to be a reflection of the things that we naturally have found ourselves gravitating towards. And it's not by chance that your client base was well developed in that particular category because of also the affinity you've had with technology since you were a child. And now that we've, again, we make those connections and we say, well, why don't we make our growth journey significantly easier by just now positioning ourselves in this particular space? And again, yourtechcpa.com, I think everyone would be wise to go check out what James has going on over there, build on dreamleads.app. But let's even wind the clock back a little bit more here, because I know we jumped forward to niche selection, which is something a lot of people are very curious about when they get ready to work with us. But really, when did the entrepreneurial bug bite you? When did you really start your firm?
Well, like I said, prior to being in the accounting field, I was in the real estate field. And at that point, I was running my own business. So it was pretty early on that I really wanted to be, the decision maker in my own business. When I entered into the accounting field, I actually worked with a large regional firm for about 7 years. And, just didn't feel like it was a natural fit for me to be there. I learned a lot. It was a great experience. I have no regrets, certainly. But I knew at some point I was going to be on my own. I mean, that was always the long-term plan. I've never really considered anything else, honestly. It's just that's, I guess I don't like to, I'm kind of maybe a little bit of a control freak, maybe. So I don't like other people making decisions. I like to be in on them. So, and that's good and bad because, delegation's always been kind of a challenge for me to turn things loose to give to my staff, which I've, since we've started the Dream Firm stuff, I've learned to kind of trust my staff because they're capable. They know what they're doing. And so, that leads to more benefits, that, we'll possibly talk about, in a few minutes.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I'm a big fan of entrepreneurship is really fundamentally about one thing, and it is about control. And I think there's a difference between being a control freak, but also understanding we want control over our time, how much money we make, the impact we get to have with our clients, and not feeling like that has to be dictated to us by someone else. And there's nothing wrong with embracing what I consider to be, sometimes a controversial topic of control, but that's really at the end of the day what it's all about. And I think the sooner we recognize that, and for what it's worth, the sooner we can actually do something about it. Let's talk a little bit about your firm. We've talked about your work experience inside of the real estate space, and then obviously also with your time with another firm as an employee. But let's talk about the services that you provide. There's a lot of conversation in the market about pricing and packages, but really, what do you find to be the sweet spot that you really like to offer to your clients? What does that really mean to you from a service delivery perspective?
Well, we like to be involved with the clients proactively on a day-to-day type. We don't want to wait till this time of year and prepare the tax return. We want to be thinking about the 2022 tax returns today, so that we can set things up in a manner that's going to be most advantageous for our client when we file that tax return next year. I mean, we should not be sitting here trying to make sure that we're finding every potential deduction. We should be proactively working with our clients, doing everything from a deep dive into their the way their entity is set up, or what kind of entity they've chosen, all the way through to the very, the finer details. So, as a certified tax coach, in addition to being a CPA, I do have training, to do just that. And, it's also a lot more fun to me to watch, certainly watch my practice grow, but watch my clients' businesses grow as well. I mean, and with knowledge that I'm providing them services such as advisory services, fractional CFO type services, proactive tax planning services, giving them the best chance at success along the way, rather than just a one time a year contact and, see you next year.
And this to me is something that the market readily recognizes. And I'm talking about the entrepreneurial accountants. We understand that the reactionary approach of yesteryear is no longer enough, that people want more and they're willing to invest in more, but you got to be willing to invest in yourself to be able to develop that skill set, that expertise, so that you can offer that. And then on top of that, you also need to have the right clientele that are willing to recognize that and can invest at that more of a premium level. So that's excellent, James. Again, I think that's a kudos to you for preparing for moments like this so that you can maximize them. And there's nothing funner than watching your clients grow, as I've had the pleasure of watching you as well. So it's a humbling experience. You know what I mean?
It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about life before working with dream firms, because I find that it's very easy for us to forget what life used to be like. I'm always reflecting on my life before I had a chance to really start to work with my coach, and the stark differences. And you mentioned this earlier about team building and trusting, and that really to me is the next level of business success. But bring us back to really what life was like before you started to work with us.
I started the practice, as a one-man shop 5 years ago, January 2017. And, I probably made the same mistake that a lot of accounting professionals make, and that is pursuing volume over everything else. And, I had a plan, the plan worked, but it was the wrong plan. And I built a pretty solid practice on high volume work with low margins. And what I found was, when it came time that I needed the additional help, I had to make the choice of, well, do I pay myself or do I pay my staff? And so, it was at that point, I realized I had to make a change. And, I think that's what's certainly what we're seeing now and experiencing, these first 3 months this year.
Yeah, look, that's not an unfamiliar experience or story. I hear that just about every day that I have a chance to talk to someone when they're getting ready to consider working with us, is that the plan they put in place might have seemed great at the outset, do more for less, right? Which is a very common approach. We see what other people are doing. We say, hey, I can offer a little bit more. And if I can just maybe beat them a little bit on the price side, I'll be the obvious choice. But there's a natural bottleneck that occurs from that planning, which is I don't have the profitability to both pay myself and pay a team member to continue to grow. So that bottleneck is inevitable. And the only way to stop that, to prevent that, is to switch the model, get to more of a premium pricing model, which of course James has successfully done here, and really be very selective in the clients that we work with, where we have quality over quantity. Do you think that's a fair restatement of your experience thus far, James?
Yeah. And I think probably what I want to probably add to that is that by doing low margin work with high volume, we're really doing a disservice to our clients, because we cannot maintain that. It's not a sustainable plan. And we're also doing a terrible disservice to ourself and our health. And I realized that a year ago after tax season, in which I was really on the edge of burnout. I realize now that how close I was before I joined Dream Firms. And once I got into Dream Firms and kind of saw, okay, there is a better way, that was really reinvigorating. It was re-energizing, and probably pulled me back from the edge of the cliff there.
It's I've seen the look in people's eyes when they've hit that wall, and it's not a good place to be. And I'm glad you didn't hit it before you had a chance to get with us, but it's a scary place.
Yeah.
We're just taking on too much responsibility, and there is a smarter way forward. But you were about to say something?
No, it's really, just to reiterate, it's really as much a disservice to ourselves, but really to our clients. I mean, because we just can't service the clients in the way that we need to.
Yeah. And look, I'm a big believer. Look, I talked to a wonderful individual last night. They just weren't a great fit. And that happens, right? And we have to be very smart about what we say yes to and what we say no to, because you're exactly right. It's a disservice to take away from the clients that really do appreciate what we have, that are willing to invest in it, because now we've got these lower margin, big time constrained clients that just aren't a great fit for what we're looking to provide to the market right now. And it's a valuable insight, and something that's going to benefit you for the rest of your entrepreneurial days. But let's talk about some of the other experiences you had that might be, some people try and compare us to other people in the market, and then they get to actually experience what it is, and they realize the profound differences of what we bring. So do you have that benchmark of another program that you've invested in? Have you invested in anything else that you would consider similar?
Honestly, I've always been skeptical of these type of programs. I mean, I've always thought, oh, I'm a smart guy. I can do this. I don't need someone to tell me how to. But I did look into a few, and it always seemed like it was more of a cookie cutter type program that they were offering. Whereas, okay, you just give us some of your information, and we're going to just drop it into a template and set up a website, and off you go. Whereas your program, I mean, from the outset, you're making us, to our benefit, do that work to develop something that is true to us, to our core beliefs, so that when we do get to the point that we can implement the program, things will flourish, I think, much quicker in most ways.
You hit the nail right on the head, which is, we don't force you into a box. Do we know processes and structures that do work well? Yes. But as I'm famous for saying, right, remember, only you can make your dream firm a reality. It's your dream firm at the end of the day. And so what makes you unique? Your story with baseball, your love of technology, right? Like, as much as I'd love to make these things up, I can't, right? Like, it has to come from your heart. It has to come from your soul, from your background. And that's what the market really wants, which is which is authenticity. But I wanted to reference something that comes up quite a lot in the accounting space right now, which is commoditization. And James, do you find that your clients are considering you to be a commodity and are asking for the lowest price? I know that it can still happen, of course, but is that a recurring theme for you right now?
It happens more than I would like, but as we move forward, I'm seeing less of that, and I'm able now. I have the confidence now, whereas before, and maybe confidence is the wrong word, as I'm a people pleaser. I have a hard time saying no. So but now I recognize, well, there's somebody out there who's a better fit for you than me, so that I can focus on the folks that we fit better together with. So as far as the commoditization, sure, that's going to exist. I think that's always going to exist out there. People are very price sensitive, and but as long as we're doing enough to help the client, bring the value to the client, bring more value to the client than what they're paying us, which I think we can do, and still charge enough to maintain a business and grow the business, and live a reasonably comfortable life where we're not sitting in an office 3 months out of the year every day, not seeing your home except in darkness. That sort of thing, that's going to be a benefit to the client, because in past years, by the time the tax deadline rolled around, the last thing I wanted to do was more accounting work. This year, we're 2.5 weeks away from the deadline. I haven't worked every weekend this year. I haven't worked late nights every night this year. I mean, when I joined the program, one of the things that you said is, those small marginal changes that you can make build upon themselves to make ultimately a large change in efficiency. So I and my staff, we are working pretty normal hours for a tax office. I mean, well, better than normal hours for a tax office. We're not constantly in the office. Unfortunately, I've had a family medical emergency the last few weeks. I've been able to spend time with that rather than worry about a lot of tax returns. And that's a huge benefit. I mean, that I can go and spend time with family and not be sitting there worrying about are these tax returns being done? Because I know my staff's working. And I know that when I get back to the office, there's not going to be a huge pile for me to catch up, that I'm going to be working constantly for, the next 2.5 weeks.
It's hard to quantify what that's worth, right?
Yeah.
The peace of mind that comes along with knowing that when the emergency happens, that you can be present and you don't have to have this calling that's constantly in the back of your mind that you're not doing something, you need to be doing it, but things are getting done. And it's okay for you to step away. It's okay for you to go home a little earlier. It's okay, right? Like these are things that don't happen overnight. I'm a big fan of saying seconds into minutes, minutes into hours, hours into days, and so on and so forth. And this is the point, is like, if you're on this or you're watching this and you're wondering, when's my tax season going to change? Well, it's not going to change unless you start changing it at the end of this tax season. And again, we're 2.5 weeks away, about 2 weeks away from the 15th deadline right now. And James is able to take an hour out of his day to speak with us. There aren't many people who are running firms that are able to do that right now. And I wanted to just round out my point on commoditization from earlier. And this is, when you have that high volume practice, you have these really long hours without a lot to show for it. And you don't get to be able to enjoy what James just described to us. But the reason commoditization happens, not a lot of people talk about why it happens. It only happens when the market cannot fundamentally tell the difference between you and another service provider. And so the reason that I've been emphasizing James' background, his story, his niche, is that you cannot now compare James against another accounting firm, because what makes him unique and special speaks specifically to someone. Whereas if you go and compare him against 99% of the rest of the market that have these cookie cutter approaches that all look the same, well, James offers more, right? He's got a higher level of expertise to a specific type of person which means they're going to be willing to invest more. And he, in turn, is able to deliver a better result without burning both ends of the candle. So again, compliment to you, James, on making those powerful decisions, sticking by them, and ultimately bearing the fruit that they come along with. So let's advance just a tiny bit here, because I didn't even realize we're almost 30 minutes into this. So let's get to some of the really cool stuff. Really, why did you start working with us? What was the defining thing that said, I really should do this?
I stumbled upon Dream Firms and you probably a year and a half ago when I was looking for practice management software, and you had a interview out there with a developer of a product that I was interested in. It was one of my choices. I watched that video and I kept thinking, well, the product looks good that I'm interested in, but this guy asking all these questions is also asking some interesting questions and making some interesting points. And I may look back at some point and say that my biggest mistake was not at that time going a little deeper on what you were offering. But it's stuck in the back of my head. And, after last tax season, which I would say 2020, 2021 are probably the two hardest tax seasons that I've worked through, just because of the COVID situation, tax law changes, all the new programs coming on, trying to help everybody that I could help. And really probably, that really leading to that burnout that I was nearing. At that point, I had made that, I had the mindset change starting that, yeah, I've got to find another way. I looked at some programs. I remembered your program. I looked more deeply into yours and saw that it was not that cookie cutter approach. That was what really concerned me about the other programs I was looking at. And, some of it was just a strong gut feeling that, this is the direction we should go. And, I listened to a lot of your videos that you have on YouTube and CPA Academy. I listened to a few of those that you did. And, we scheduled some time to talk. And, once we kind of had that one-to-one, it was pretty easy decision to make, I felt.
Sounds like you did your research, and that's great to hear. And I appreciate that. Once you got started with us, right? Because there is I think it's hard for people to visualize and understand, like, once you're on the inside, because, of course there's the conversation, there's the idea of the investment, there's some hesitation. And I get all of that because you don't really know until you know. Mm-hmm. But what was that feeling like for you, James, when you said, hey, all right, let's go ahead and get this started? What was it like getting started for you?
It's like being left on a deserted island for years, and then finally a ship passing by who with some like-minded people who could maybe get me on the right direction and get me off of that deserted island. I mean, it really is, when you start out as a solo practice, you really are in a lot of ways on an island. As my former boss would say, we're all silos. We all stand side by side, but we don't really communicate with each other. And when I joined, it was there was a network of people already there working with you, and I could see the success of many that had already been working with you for a little bit of time. So it was immediately a sense of relief there. Now, when we first looked at the program, it's a little daunting, honestly. I mean, there's a lot of steps there, but once you take that first step, you realize, okay, these are bite-sized steps. These are manageable. We can handle step one within an hour or two with a little bit of deep thought, a little bit of honesty with ourselves, and we can build on this. And before you know it, you've got a lot accomplished and a lot of potential content that you're building, for your for your promotional work once you get ready to implement it. So it was really, when I saw the other people there, realized that, there were people I could reach out to when we do our hot seats, like I mentioned on our last one, that it's really, I come in with a lot of concerns, a lot of, just because I haven't experienced something before. In 30 minutes, I'm walking out of there with, okay, here's someone who just gave me the answers, who's talked to a number of other accountants who've had similar experiences and has done this himself. So, it's very confidence building because of, I know there's some people have already traveled this path before me, and I'm not just, blazing my own trail now.
Perfectly said. And I was a little afraid in the beginning when you mentioned the desert island. I thought you were saying we put you on the desert island, but now I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, he's making an analogy of like, now he can see that there's people like him. I was like, felt like you're on a desert island with us.
No, okay. That's where I was before.
I was like, I hope it didn't feel like that.
You guys were the ship that came by and rescued me. So I certainly appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So, how has this really changed your life? And I know you talked a bit about the experience earlier, but let's talk more about, I think, the outlook that you have moving forward, because we loosely touched on that earlier, but the momentum that you've developed in just these 90 days. I mean, we've been working together for a little bit longer than that, of course, but these last 90 days have been really fruitful for you. What has that done for your outlook for the future?
A year ago, I would have never considered adding $100,000 in revenue within 365 days. And now I think I'll be disappointed if I don't. So, I mean,
well said.
Yeah, it's truly game changing. It's truly a game changing program and mindset. And beyond just, the revenue. I mean, the fact that I don't work every weekend now, that when I go home, I'm not opening up my laptop and still answering emails, that I can turn off my phone at a normal business hour, that I can just simply get up and walk out of the office if I'm having a bad day and don't want to talk to anybody. It's really, I mean, it's kind of, you kind of feel like for a long time that you're kind of pushing a rock up the hill, trying to get to the top. But then, when you get into a program like this, that rock, that boulder is no longer there. And so that climb is much, much easier to make.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. So we're going to ask kind of two questions in succession here.
Yeah.
But I love to ask this question because we offer so much, right? We got software, we got done for you graphic design, copywriting, coaching, community, cutting edge material. I mean, I could go on, and that's not to overwhelm people watching it. It's more of like, hey, I like to make the analogy of there's the librarian and the librarian, right? We've got what you need, but you need to know what you need to access. You've had a chance to access the full suite, James, really.
Yeah.
So what is it that you find is the most valuable part of what we have to offer? What do you enjoy most about working with us?
That's a challenging question because there is a lot there. But really, I think alluding back to my earlier answers, it's really that community is a lot of it. I mean, right now I've had a couple of other members of Dream Firms send leads to me. I've sent a couple of leads out to other folks. So, we're here sharing potential leads with each other. If someone doesn't fit my firm as well as I feel like they need to, then there are folks in the program who may be a much better fit that I can point them to. And that is huge to me, just knowing that you're not out here alone. And it's almost, like kind of like going back to working at a large firm without all the bad stuff that happens with in the corporate setting with a lot of people who are really competing against each other to move to the next level. We're kind of all we're all in a boat kind of rowing the same direction. And, there's folks here that are maybe a better fit, like I said, that I can hand stuff off to if they have the availability. So the community's huge. I mean, absolutely huge. And the hot seats, which is a much scarier term than what it actually is. But those are absolutely, I don't know how to put value on that, because just having that, I think we kind of talked about it kind of being like a therapist meeting once a month, to kind of talk us through where our insecurities may be, where our lack of prior experience, as far as dealing with a growing firm, that sort of thing. That's also very invaluable. And, we've had those weekly meetings that really help you stay on track. I mean, probably my biggest concern was, for me, just knowing myself, is, if I had stayed through the first program and not renewed, I would have all these new tools, but I would gradually move back toward the old bad habits. And staying in has kept me motivated to stay away from those, or move away from those bad habits that I might gravitate back towards.
There's an expression that I love, which is, and this is a great one to bring everyone that's listening, bring this into a sales conversation when someone's maybe thinking that this should be hourly, or I only need you for this one little project. And look, we have people who come and they do fantastic, and they move on to other things. And that's great. We've got no problem with that. There are people who come and invest with us, and they stick with us because they can see that continuing the momentum that we develop in our first program is well worth continuing to build upon. And the expression that you should bring is that a permanent solution requires an ongoing investment. If you don't stay invested with us, whether it's in your accounting, bookkeeping, or tax, or whether it's from a marketing and sales and a mindset principle, guess what? That thing that you've come to enjoy, it's slowly going to taper off. Your books are going to slowly become a mess. You're going to lose out on your tax savings. You're going to end up getting more penalties. You're going to start to fall back into your bad habits. You're not going to continue to work with your dream clients, right? So that's a great answer, James. And I just want to thank you for it. And this next question is something that I never apply any pressure on. It's more of a, if you choose to share, we're more than happy to hear it. But how much have you added to your firm, and in what time frame have you added it?
Oh, we're going to have a visit from my cat here. Let me think just 1 second here, because February last month became my highest monthly revenue month in the history of the firm. And I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, so I won't say, but it was more than triple February of 2021.
And just to be clear, you've been full-time in your business for about 5 years, or you started 5 years
This is year 6. This is year 6 now. We started 2017.
So we're talking about a serious jump from one year to the next.
Serious jump. March, we won't see the tripling in March, but it's going to be another record month for us.
Hey, we still got a couple hours left in March. You never know when that.
Yeah. So quarter one, again, biggest quarter in my practice's history, by a lot. And again, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I have done more this quarter than I have done. I think the first 2 years of my practice, I've done more this quarter than the first 2 years of my practice total. Yeah.
That's humbling. Congratulations. What a tremendous success, and well earned. What would you say to someone considering our services right now?
Do it. Well, I don't know what else. I don't know what else to say. I mean, if you're on the fence, do it. I mean, it is game changing. It's been game changing for me. I can't, that's been my experience, and I don't know any other way to really express it.
What has surprised you the most when it's come to growing your practice? I think people hear, tripling in their first 2 years in business in a single quarter, and that's it's kind of it's hard to conceptualize. But what surprised you about your growth journey so far?
Probably how quickly it's happened. I thought this would probably be a 6 to 8 month journey rather than a 2 to 3 month journey to get to where we're at right now. And keep in mind, this is our first full quarter with the program. We're not fully implemented. The Dream Leads app that you mentioned earlier, we just got that on board this week. And so I think that's going to supercharge things for the next quarter, whereas normally April 15th, we look for a dip. I'm anticipating to continue, to continue that trajectory.
That's excellent, and we've got a lot left in store too. But we're putting the pieces together, and look, something's better than nothing. I find that a lot of people, paralysis by analysis, they're waiting for perfection. And again, I want to compliment you, James, and really all of our clients for taking the mindset that progress will always be perfection, because perfection doesn't exist. And you're again reaping the fruit of that mindset and the corresponding actions that it's allowed us to take together as a team here. So who would you recommend the Create Your Dream Firm program to, James?
Any solo practitioner who's looking to grow their practice. I mean, if you're looking at burnout, if you're looking at working long hours during tax season, if you don't enjoy doing that, which I don't know anybody who really does, this will change the trajectory of your practice. And I can repeat what I said earlier. I don't work that many weekends now. Certainly during tax season, we're going to work some. We don't work till 11 o'clock at night every night. We go home at a reasonable hour and have dinner. And it really, truly does change your mindset, and it changes your approach to doing your business. And I think that's beneficial for your clients, because you can convey that, work smarter, not harder, like we do. Whereas before we were working harder and not necessarily smarter.
It's incredibly hard to be an advisor that doesn't take their own medicine. And this is one of I think the main things that separates us from, I don't really even think we have competitors, but separates us from people who we think we compete against, is that we take our own medicine religiously at Dream Firms. There's nothing that I will suggest or recommend that you will not see us doing with full belief in what it's for. And when we're talking about advising other businesses, if we don't have a business that we're truly proud of, one that's allowing us to lead a life that's healthy, productive, profitable, it's hard for us to be able to go and make that value proposition to someone else and truly believe in it. And if you've watched any of my sales trainings in any capacity, I'm very clear about what sales is all about. It's the transfer of emotion between one person and another. And one of the foremost emotions we have to transfer is the fervent belief we have in our promises and our services. And I know that comes across extremely clear from James, and I certainly hope it comes across extremely clear from me as well. So James, you've been extremely kind with your time, especially given the time of year that we're in. And next tax season, we're not working a single weekend. We've managed to pull back a couple weekends, a lot of weekends, this one, but next one, the trajectory is going to be unbelievable. So what else, any other just parting shots that you have before we close out here? Any pearls of wisdom you'd like to share, thoughts, anything at all?
Wow. I don't know. I really feel like we covered most of what I would want to say pretty comprehensively. I mean, it's just it's been an amazing journey thus far, and looking forward to the next quarter and seeing where that leads us into the quarters after that. And, you know, it's exciting to be building something now and adding additional people, providing jobs for people who are, you know, who can do the work and want to do the work. Whereas before we're just kind of fighting the fight on our own. So yeah, it's been a pretty incredible change so far, and I anticipate being surprised positively more as we move forward.
Well, we certainly have some additional surprises in store. And again, I just want to thank you so much for your time today, James. It's been an absolute pleasure to unpack your story to the benefit of those who are struggling right now, who feel like they're on that island, who feel like they're working too many hours and not getting the respect that they deserve, and don't have that same outlook of what the trajectory of their firm looks like, where they would be disappointed to not add $100,000, right? Like you're expecting of it, because really that's the trajectory that you are clearly on. And we've got some ground to cover still, but the ground we've covered already is quite impressive. So I want to thank you again for choosing to be a part of the Dream Firms family and continuing to be a part of it. And I'll very much look forward to seeing you on our next call. But for everyone else, if you're looking to experience what James has, and perhaps even a little bit more, who knows, right? He's already set the world on fire, but who knows what your story is going to be like. If you're looking to ultimately explore what we have, check out dreamfirms.com or go to dreamfirms.com/now. If you want to book a call to speak directly with me, I'm taking calls right now. So if you want to just talk shop, understand exactly what we have to offer, I'd love to learn more about you to make your next tax season the best one ever, just like James has. So thank you so much again, James. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Remember, only you can make your dream firm a reality, just like James is, but we help you every single step of the way. Have a safe rest of your tax season, everyone. And please don't burn out. It does not need to happen.